Bonjour à tous, merci de nous avoir rejoints.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming in numbers to this roundtable on XDR Technologies. I'll give you a few more moments. We are going to talk about technology, about how to detect and respond to security incidents. Or EDR technologies or XDR technologies are a natural evolution of EDR technologies. XDR technologies target and process increasingly specific attacks in a larger perimeter with new functionalities and easing investigations that are particularly complex. So this commitment is relatively worthwhile, including for those who want to strengthen their detection of security incidents. So their commitments are numerous. The approach is gaining ground with clients, but are these really relevant solutions? What complementarity can be found with the traditional solutions, with SOC solutions? Well, to talk about this today, we have a roundtable with three experts on different topics: software addition, security, security operations. Marie Lepargneux, first of all, Chief Development Officer at Tetris on XDR platforms in France. You have a master's at the Polytechnic School in Management Science, and you've worked for more than 10 years with executives on issues of business model, organizational, managerial, and technological transformation. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. François-Régis Vignot from the Armed Forces Ministry. You are the head of the cybersecurity pole, and you've been there since September 2021. You work on IT defensive strategy at the Armed Forces Ministry. Good afternoon. And finally, Guillaume Buffier from Login Security. You are the operations director. You've worked on SOC topics. You've developed this activity, and you will give us your feedback on these technologies on detecting security incidents. Good afternoon. In order to start, I'd like to locate XDR Technologies. I would like to ask you, maybe I can ask Marie first. How is XDR innovative, and what does it bring to the security ecosystem? Good afternoon, everyone. I think you've started hearing about XDR platforms about 2 years ago. Some of you may have thought it was a new marketing word on innovation, on developments, but what's behind it? There's a concrete reality that is part of a context. This context should be understood to understand why XDR platforms were developed. They were developed earlier. We've had cybersecurity platforms for about 10 years. The XDR word has just appeared on the market, but it covers a multi-capability reality in terms of detection and response. If I look at the Gartner definition, this multi-capability should cover protection of systems, networks, and the cloud, with a number of cybersecurity modules. Gartner says we need at least 3 to have an XDR platform. I challenge you to look at whether this dimension is being respected. It is also part of a context of increase in attacks and in more complex attacks. Also a lack of human resources, and we'll talk about this in this roundtable. It is also part of a context of increase in the necessary cybersecurity products to face the current threats. On average, in medium-sized companies, there are 27 cybersecurity products, and in large companies, You can have until 75 cybersecurity products. The platform is here in such a context to give high provision capabilities, to give interoperability capabilities with endpoint protection, whether it be unified security, IDR in EPP for workstations and servers, or EPP for mobile parts. There are more and more requests for protection, including with the Pegasus case a few months ago, and today it continues. And Gartner tells us we need a network function with NDR or deceptive response. And then they integrate other cybersecurity modules. On our part, we have CM, because we need to have these logs to create correlations. So XDR platform is the ability to protect the cloud, the network, and the systems through modules that will be interoperable, interconnected. We'll talk about SOAR, this coordination between modules. Okay, very clear. So we understand the need to professionalize the technical responsibilities. Guillaume, as service companies that uses SOC, our XDR technology is a natural evolution or disruption. How do you see this? It's difficult for me to talk about an XDR tool. I think it's better to use XDR platform because it covers a number of tools. So to me, it's a natural evolution. It was supposed to be the centralizing tool, the magic tool. But today, the companies that only have a CM are running behind, lagging behind on these topics. So this is a good approach. And I think, there's the model. We have specialized tools for cloud, for network, for web navigation, for browsing, for etc. And we need consistency, I agree. They have 40 tools, and if they are not consistent, it doesn't work. So XDR, this platform, this approach, helps with consistency and response and detection teams. So it's a natural evolution for me. It's a good approach that should be kept with the SOC teams, and it's something that should be unified and developed. Pay attention to this idea of a magic bullet. CM is a good tool, it's not a magic bullet. So beware. This is my fear today. Thank you, Guillaume. François Régis, is the solution an additional brick to a multi-layer of technologies? Does it replace other technologies? How do you see these technological innovations in defense and reaction response postures? I don't know if it's an added brick, because it brings something that other bricks didn't bring. It's consistency, as was said before. So it's a brick, but it's also the glue that makes sure everything holds together. The good thing is that it helps, that there's more consistency, an overall consistency. But I agree with the concerns. We center everything around the tool. It should be chosen, it should be assessed beforehand. But it's a tool that uses privileges. And for an attacker, it's also a worthwhile target. Because if they manage to work on XDR, they get the access to the whole system. So it enables an attacker to use it as a central point of the IT security. It might be easier to attack XDR if you manage to do it, rather than attacking another part of the system to reach the same result. Okay, second question. about a scenario that many fear. It's quite universal. It's ransomware. If we look at this scenario, this use case, what does XDR bring? Are the detection capabilities similar? Are there new things? Well, we have functions to go further in terms of processing the threat. If you operate the SOC services, Guillaume, and you see these incidents every day, what can XDR bring? The XDR approach enables us, and this is the opposite of the question, is to avoid talking about ransomware. It's to have a global solution, an overall solution, perimeter solution, lateral, in the last stages of an attack. The point is to stop talking about ransomware and to stop with just one computer, one account, one phishing campaign, one vulnerability, and it stops there. So the added value of an XDR approach is not to talk about ransomware. And I think this is obvious. And the second added value is to have more response capability, and this is something that was lacking in the security teams before. In the past, 5 to 6 years ago, when I was working for the SOC of a bank, when we had an incident on a workstation, either we completely remasterized it, or we tried to understand what happened, tried to investigate, and this meant resending the workstation physically with a forensic analysis of the workstation, which takes time, and then to give back the workstation to the person who might not have worked during that time. It's huge work. Let's imagine this with home working now, remote working. XDR enables this. It enables good remote intervention with the good indicators. So it's a great approach for these scenarios. It's great visibility on investigations, and it decreases the investigation time because you have access to the information that interests you, and you have automatic functions. They are not a magic bullet, but they are very interesting when there's a suspicious process, we say. We stop this process, we try to investigate and understand what happened. Why, etc. But the impact of this micro action can be indicated by my tool. My team will work on it, but I can look at these micro actions to decrease the impact of a cyber attack.
Well, thank you, Guillaume. As you are talking about that ransomware issue, which is universal, how is XDR a disruptive technology operationally to avoid the incident? Mary, how do you consider this? Well, I'm quite okay. I think I agree with that dimension. Automatic remediation without human intervention, i.e. to block a IT process without any human intervention in real time. What is at stake, and that's what was said across this, it's the response time and detection time, first thing first. And this platform allows to reduce significantly that response time. One consider in the analysis with customer, there is a kind of propagation speed of 500 posts per minute. You could imagine in a few minutes a full company is destroyed. You can see that in some companies, medium-sized, and some cannot recover. This capacity of detection will be improved thanks to a new approach. Let's talk chief to the left, i.e. to feedback as quickly as possible the traces of the hacker. You've got a mailbox, and then you've got a product, a kind of proof point, which will be of that dimension, and you've got proxy, Zscaler, and you've got also EDRs. And in the whole chain, the target, it is to find the right moment in order to attack. The EDR will be there at the moment of execution of the process. Happily, it's there. It is in a position to block itself. If you are stream upwards at the left with proxy or tool, protection tool through mailbox, well, that is make it possible to discover the whole. And the XDR platform, I'm talking on behalf of Tetris, you've got 8 native modules with systems of the cloud and the network, and an integrated unit with detection systems which are quite advanced, simultaneously connected with third products to have the reinforcement of capabilities, better visibility for the SOC team, which is centralized in order to multiply the visibility on the whole series of products, and in addition, investigation capabilities with analysts from the SOC, bringing more added value on that dimension. Ransomware, it is pertaining, it's affecting many companies. You need a much more consolidated approach with hyper-automated systems, more AI, IA, and deploying. It's not a joke, it's a goodware, it's a malware, and the whole detection chain being reinforced in face of more structured attacks, very fast, lateral, and complex attacks. There are. Are you talking hyper-automated and so forth? If I were to provoke, SOC has got no place there anymore. It's a tool which potentially does everything to address the autonomy and to take decisions to response, and articulating this reaction with other security tools. Is that the reality, François Régis? SOC is dead with such kind of autonomous solutions? Well, I tend to think that is going too fast. No, the SOC, if you reflect, it is a whole flux of information allowing analyst teams to determine and to identify the specificities to bring the appropriate response. In the SOC, many initiatives are taken, and they are fully automated very simply. As it is repeated, recurrent, one should not say it is really making the teams very happy. Automation by XDR added value will allow the analyst to go faster in time, and specifically on the less interesting parts and segments of his work, to focus in order to focus on the added value, bigger added value, the added value of the analyst. 2 advantages. First, the whole recurrent part is very fast. And secondly, another advantage, not to be neglected in such a context, for the SOC, and they are quite tense. It's a more interesting job, and as such, more loyal teams, and that's also very important. Next, another aspect, the SOC will also take part, i.e. the XDR. It's not magic. Once you got the platform, everything goes automatic. It's true, but you need to fine-tune the rules which are specific to our IT systems, and to suppress those who have no added value, technically. And there is a big job to be done there. One should not say that a XDR, you reduce resources. Not at first. It might have you to win some later on, but it will focus the resources, affect the resource to a higher, more interesting level adapted to human intelligence. And in addition, you get the response, the automatic response. And again, it needs to be qualified a automatic response, for instance, to cut a process. Very interesting because it's cutting the attack as from the start. But one has to ensure the way it is implemented doesn't allow to do the job instead of that attacker. Export.exe to have got that on a full map, it's difficult. So one has to identify the potential. The SOC, as a matter of fact, it is a technical input, but it's also the link in between the technical IT part, security of IT, and, on the other hand, the profession of that specific corporate, that company. For most, it is about to support a profession, and any decision IT-wise will have affect the whole profession. So power kill, is there no process which is being run in the company at that point in time and which is making that link? Shall I cut right now, or do I wait and finish that professional process which has got a higher added value? It's a clinical question. There is a real added value of the SOC, and according to us, we will keep it for still a long time. So focus the analyst on the added value rather than the other incidents which can be identified by all kinds of other tools, and to keep that kind of safe wall for those initiatives supporting the analyst. Yes, Guillaume, how do you experience the evolution, the integration of these solutions with your customers and the structural change in the organization of the SOC? XDR approach, and I do agree with François, XDR approach today is segmented quite easily in 3 subjects: detection, tools. The XDR tools is generating a major added value detection-wise. That's a fact, and it's obvious. Secondly, response capacities, capabilities, very interesting. You can centralize approaches of response, and that's a major step forward for the SOC to industrialize these hard tasks. To me, it's rather the fate of that activities, these SOR, quite often included in the XDN platform, but it's rather the SOAR module that allows to orchestrate the recurrent actions, to automate recurrent tasks. Thus, part of SOR, it's not to have DN1 to be cancelled. That has been said for years, neither to substitute the teams. It's rather to work on smart tasks rather than asking an analyst to cancel 10,000 mails of a phishing campaign. No, at once you can identify the script, to identify it as a malware and to cancel them in one click. That's a task with a real added value. To answer this provocation, no, the SOC is certainly not dead. There is one interface, one tool, centralized processes. That's the SOC. And there's something else, just in between brackets. It is our vision. On the login side, the SOC, it is indeed a incident response system, yes, but also security tools management. XDR, there are some parameters. Safety tools, there needs to be parameters for the client, for the customer. It is of the paramount importance, of course. It's governance, but also to address the risks and to make that link between those teams. It's also about anticipation. Do it before. That's not often considered as a SOC. And even if, to my eyes, incident management would be automated, that part, the vulnerability and risk mitigation, is not done by XDR platform. It's not what I see on the market. You need some additional human input. And the Printfood, as we were talking about, complexity in terms of recruitment, and sorry to tell this as such, it's complex to address some solutions. Solutions saying the profile to the junior people, your job won't exist anymore tomorrow, as my tool will do your job. And it's not said as such for sure, but it's complex to address young people, junior IT people, people that will be trained for that kind of job, that kind of capability. And tomorrow, a magic tool will do your job. Well, we need those people today. There's a lack of such kind of profiles. I don't need really more detection tools today. I need people who can understand the risk of the customers, the need of their professional field, and to push on the right button at the right moment. This is quite often within XDR, but I need a human being to push the button. I'd like to ask everybody to be careful. We don't need any people anymore. It might be the case in some specific fields. You need some people for the cybersecurity, vulnerability, governance, and so forth. That's for sure. Well, thank you, Marie. You are a solution editor, and you still need some people to work on the output, how to exploit, how to use it as much as possible with a SOC and so forth. How do you stand? What's your point of view towards XDR? How are you going to shape the SOC and manage the interpretation of alarms and incidents? Well, many things have just been said. I'd say we agree, of course, as we are working with about 20 partners today, operating all services above the solutions with governance, compliance issues, editing, but also cyber security and so forth, all kinds of services pertaining to this, and that is supported by SOC. So I really agree. You got a pop-up and you need to take it into account. It's a job which is being transforming. It used to be a recurrent task job with tasks and so forth. It might be hard to spend your whole time reading on screens to read alarm signals on the platform. That's why we wanted to work upon that as from the start for more than 10 years with new capabilities to have got a alarm signal screen and a qualification of alarm signs based upon artificial intelligence as a complement of the SOC. Our technology, it's not on a standalone. It's in addition to analyst teams with all our partners. Quite interesting. We are working with about 20 partners and SOCs working all across the world, in India, in Europe, in France, and other parts of the world. Each of these have got its specificities, SOCs that will be very industrialized as such, and they reach very advanced process development and a customer promise, which is one report a week and not that much customized at all. Other SOCs with added value really strongly developed in order to be customized in a relationship with that job. What we're willing to do technology-wise with that customization, you've got SOC in the box with AI, IA, for specific customers in order to nurture analysts of level 3. With a ticketing system, they will fill in the system. They open a ticket because of an alarm signal. With IA, they will nurture and feed the capabilities as a complement to the teams. We are into a evolution dynamic of our technology in order to go further, a step ahead, and to be more specific for all corporate world we do monitor. We're working in close relationship with the partners, the SOCs, as they have got another way to proceed. Some will go very far in the hunting, investigation, and it is our specificity as Tetris has been launched by two former people from the security services in France, which were used to offensive approaches. They used to work with spying method, and there is a platform which is going really deeply into the roots and simultaneously analysis capacity, which is much faster with a resource in order to identify the highest risk. Our teams will not disappear, certainly not. The job will evolve for sure. Look at any activity sector. There have been evolution like this one, be it in the post office. You were told in a post office 10 or 20 years ago to come and work, but today you don't get the same content. It's the same in the cybersecurity world. Clear. Thank you, Marie. I get back to the incident response, which is a critical step in the detection of response, and usually customers trust the capacity to detect a threat and to work with signals, isn't it? It has become complicated if you get to dig into. You need to find the traces and to get access to posts which are remote or not next doors, at least. Access, network access with a hardware which is owned by third parties. If you get back to that incident response, what do we might expect from XDR technology investigation-wise for the security teams? How can XDR allow the function to treat that alert, to investigate remotely? How does it work? Well, very important into the incident response is to work with experts, of course. We react when it's needed, of course. Paramount it is to install the EDR, a functionality of the XDR platform, on the whole park. That will provide you with the visibility on what happened. The major risk with a ransomware attack destroying your park, it's all the sleeping agents, i.e. the attacker will get back a few days later to continue this attack. You really must proceed to a deep-rooted investigation. All signs of compromission need to be identified in order to have that capability. And I'm thinking about a few examples, and we acted on industrial systems. All factories in the world were stopped, and the target, it was to implement the NDR. We had got a full visibility on the park, all the compromission points, in order that partner organizations could clean up the job and to reopen the factories step by step. Got the same with hospital. You get an SMS on 2 o'clock on a Sunday. You need to go faster because there is a life at stake. Hence the emergency. Our recommendation is first EDR with the functions of the CTI, the platform capacities, all investigation capacities, but to dig deeply into the roots, and our AI will turn on that, and then after that mitigation without human intervention, but not at start, not at first. And that's really a speaking example. Guillaume, with login, you are working for customers with your SOC. So in addition, you don't get access to the whole hardware of your customer. For some years, it might be some complicated, isn't it? You've got only information bricks without the full set, or not the autonomy to dig and to investigate for incidents. What's your feedback of your XDR experience if you want to go in deep layers? Do you get time? Do you get exhaustive information? What about your experience response-wise? Yes, clearly, full information, quality information, better visibility, in order to collect not only logs, but also potentially network and telemetrics from the context, the strat intel, intelligence, the customer context. We act as a MSSP. So we've got the referential part of the customers, the list of assets, and to know that such a computer, it is one of the accountancy or the NIT. It's a 3 different response to technical issues, which might differ technical-wise. All this, I'd say, yes, it's of a high interest. XDR allows to proceed to automation, the analysis, and to enrich the priority of that alarm signal. The graphic interface is designed for the security analyst, not for reporting or whatsoever. That's, again, another added value. We have got interfaces where it's quite simple to understand what happened and to proceed to the move to the left and to identify where it came from. It's much more simple to dig in depth, a memory analysis, a analysis of the file system. 5 or 10 years ago, it was just the order line of script which was not reliable. Today, the interface is very clear with a dark mode, with other words, much intuition, and we win quite a lot of time thanks to this, because you don't get that recurrent task. Much of automation thanks to the SOAR and the whole investigation enriching the threat. It is automated, and as such, no problem in terms of that question. Will there be an impact, yes or no? No, it's just automation to find that ash from the total virus. You know, it might have an impact, and to identify such a machine is the one of that person in such segment of the administration, it has got no impact. I won't wound anybody. So this is automated, and we win quite a lot of time into that investigation in order to have a qualitative, well-cared response. Hence, we got a incident management which is really mitigated, and for sure, big yes regarding the added value of the XDR, the SOAR, the EDR, which are in line regarding investigation and response capability. Guillaume, the automated response, how do you deal with this? Would you think? I think that part of the incident will be part of such or such category, and you got a response either to enrich a alert or take action to block on a panel. How do you build this automation approach? And are customers interested into that brick, rather the SOAR brick, and usually in extension the software development? So there are different streams, isn't it, regarding that protection tools, XDR, EDR. But from the MSSP point of view, and as an operator of this solution, how do you perceive that automation, and what's the feedback of customers introducing those workflows? The SOAR, I would talk about the SOAR. It is, of course, a major added value, very strong, because it will standardize the whole series of responses, whatever the detection, whether it be EDR, talking about malware, EPP. An employee is telling me that his computer is strange. Well, all these subjects need to be dealt with, and to oppose compromising machines, it must be detected by an employee who is sensitized and trained. This is not normal. Might be the feedback of a DASB, a phishing campaign. The way to address this phishing campaign, it will be the same way I address that file. There's IR. Well, I will introduce that treatment playbooks with compromission of machines, also of the directory. I mean, that has no sense to cover the whole category, but to have a uniform, standardized response and to dissociate the procedure to apply from the tool that has led to that solution. Employees will be trained much faster. Better quality of response in order to have all aspects of that category to be covered. And once it's well organized, we will identify the action taken and to, of course, automate this. Very important to have this playbook. Very important to make a difference of this SOR tool from the detection tool. A SOR into the platform, no issue. But the SOR, well, it's hard to comply with that vision. Those who have got the SOR and NDR who has got the SOR, because we'll tackle the same subject and we need to standardize our response in the SOR. So we get back much too much tools doing the same job and not compatible the one with the other. It's important to work on a framework with one tool to pilot, to steer the answer, which is automation. François Régis, how do you treat this subject, articulation and automation? Is that a concrete example? Is that something today which is introduced in a specific case? How do you approach this orchestration and automation?
Well, we do this at the end of the supervision process. When we decide we will place a system under supervision, we'll ask ourselves about the scenarios, the possible scenarios, what do we fear. This creates attack pathways to reach the scenario. And once we have this, we look at where we want to stop the chain of attack and where we can start implementing playbooks to answer this question. Always with another idea where we want to intervene. What's the impact on the industry? Is it acceptable? What can the effects be? So these are things we are thinking of, but we do this with the industry because it's important. We start from the principle that what matters is the entity's mission. Anything can have an impact on this mission. And what matters at the end is to carry out your mission. So you need to find the right response so that the person can not endanger their long-term system. So finding a balance between automated response and the ability to control. Yes, what matters is that we try to have automatic responses when it creates an important contribution to the chain. But if this response can create detrimental scenarios where we do the work instead of the attacker, we look at another way of working. Okay. Marie, you have a double challenge here. Orchestrating security, but also in the Tetris platform, looking at playbook scenarios that are compatible with a very broad ecosystem. In general, clients have a solution ecosystem that is quite broad. So how do you orchestrate security? Is this something natural in a client's maturity? How do you help clients with this change, with automation, with speed and simplicity? In Tetris history, the two co-founders had a platform vision right from the start. It's not called XDR platform in the beginning, but it was integrated within our platform, and that was since the beginning. because there was this vision of orchestration between the native modules in the XDR platform. Then there was a second change, which is important, and I think this is what you meant, Christophe, the interoperability with third products. So yes, it takes a bit of time. It means our teams, our R&D teams, are mobilized on this topic to have interfaces in order to go further and quicker. I'd say it happens progressively. I'd say it's indispensable given the higher complexity of attacks. So you need an integrated SOAR. We already had this, but you also need this vision with third products that are complementary to the modules we have in our XDR platform. Let me give you an example. EDR detects an attack, and then we know this attack is linked to messaging dimensions, so you shouldn't blacklist the risky systems in the messaging. So these are new automation elements that happen progressively. It's a real vision that we have with another dimension that we might have not mentioned. It's a behavior analysis. I have someone logging in at the same time in the Congo, in Russia, and the US. That doesn't seem very regular. In this vision of a behavioral analysis, it's essential. Now, I'd like to come back to one point. François-Régis said, we have a question about the XDR platform. Is it a vector of attack in itself? Is it a target? Of course, it is indispensable to work on security by design. We do tests every day to look at the possible flaws we might have, because we are aware that we work in cybersecurity and that we are potential targets. So this dimension is fully taken into account. I don't know if it's the real nature of the XDR platform that would make us more vulnerable. I don't know about this, but making sure that we have a real cybersecurity in our own systems is absolutely indispensable. So we can find traces of XDR in the SOC to secure our own security tool, right? Let me ask you an individual question now. On the reflection, the approach you might have, the advice you might give a client that would wonder, what's my response strategy? How do I work on this? Is this a technology? Is this processes? Is this an organization? Is this everything all at once? I'm asking this open question because I'd like to know what's your approach to rethink this detection and response. Maybe Régis first? François-Régis? What's your approach on the ability to rethink a model in order to detect the threats and to make your ability to detect a threat better? Well, the first step is to wonder where you will be able to collect information. It's not obvious today because we have many solutions on end-to-end encryption. So that's the first question. Where do I collect the data? This enables me to create a number of detection tools and to coordinate them. The second aspect is to look at what I already have, the solutions I already have, and then to see what's missing, what I should add. Are there things I should remove? And there's another question. What's the compatibility of all these cybersecurity tools? Because it can become a nightmare quite quickly. So once you've done all of this, you find yourself with a number of solutions that can be added. Maybe if one or two can be removed. So XDR solutions can be part of this. And then the next question is to assess the solution on two important aspects. First, the intrinsic security of the solution. Has it been tested? Can you do your own test on it to see what its robustness to an attack is? And then the functional perimeter. What's the efficiency on attack scenarios that were planned? And then also, what's the ability to integrate and to use it, the ease of use? How is the tool a support for situation awareness? Or will the tool create a tunnel effect and we won't be able to see what's happening next to it? Once we've done a benchmark of the solutions, let's not forget that this is an IT project. It will need to be rolled out and integrated, and then we need to ask ourselves, what rules do I put in it? Let's not forget about the deworming phase, because even though the system is well made, every system has its specificities. So there might be false positives, and they need to be processed in order to make it to remain efficient. So it's a real overall project that requires resources. There are some financial resources. It also requires time and HR and skills. And this is something we should not forget about. So technology, coverage, and the ability to exploit these issues, to analyze these threats. Guillaume, if you have a client who tells you, I need to rethink my detection and response posture, what's your strategy? What is your approach? What are your methods? How do you respond to this? Well, the client might hate me, but I will say, why would you only address this part? What you need to address is the cyber risk, risks in general, but we specialize on cyber risks and on this operational approach. But dissociating the detection and response and the rest is already missing out on ways to process the risk. So the first idea is to look at the risks, the dangers, and if we process the response, it can be costly, it can be complex, it can be impossible sometimes. Some attacks leave no trace at all, or almost no trace. They are very difficult to detect. But patching the vulnerability is relatively simple. So why not use this solution? So starting from risks, starting from the complementarity between the detection and the follow-up. They might not like me because I didn't really answer their question. And then I will tell them to have a service center. Internal, hybrid, external, doesn't matter. Because once you have these skills, once they're organized, once you have processes and support from the management, these skills can get equipped, can look at what can I collect, what's missing, how can I react to such and such event, how can I be in an interface with another event. So this is what we recommend our clients. We tell them to choose a team, a service center. Of course, we recommend ours, but not necessarily. This approach is true even though we are not able to provide the service. Choose your organization, choose your way of working, and things will move on naturally. Teams will find the tools that they like. The processes will guide them to go further, to go quicker, and to also address this vulnerability management. Don't leave it to the side. Don't start from the principles that today you have excellent tools. XDRs are part of it that enable us to be efficient on this topic. But this does not mean that we should not respond to an incident, because ransomware can be deployed very quickly. But we can make sure that the attacker doesn't reach the AD. So there are many complementary approaches, and this operational risk management could be done by management of incidents and vulnerability management with a common governance and with a team, common team, as we said. Thank you, Guillaume. Marie, same question. What's the strategy? What's the posture we should have? If we have questions about our cyber defense strategy, what's your approach? Forgetting about the past, just looking at your vision. I'll be brief, because I have mostly the same vision as Guillaume. It depends on the level of maturity in the organization. At the beginning, it's important to know about the risks, to know about the most precious assets in the company. This is the first step. Then you have a cybersecurity policy. You don't have it. Do you have the tools? Do you have few of them? Do you have a CM? Do you have an EDR? Do you have a team, etc.? The level of maturity will be the most important factor. And then risk analysis and asset analysis. What do we need to protect as a priority? Second thing, it's important to have an organization to know if you have an internal model, a hybrid model, or an external model, because this will enable us to work as a software editor with teams that already have an idea about what they want to implement, and we'll be able to support them given this shared vision. Third dimension, of course, technology. As a conclusion, I would like to come back to the first element and to say that if today you do not have an EDR, we think this is the priority, because this is what will enable you to block unknown threats. Not like an antivirus that will block known threats. So today, given the increase in ransomware, it's absolutely key. Now that we've said all of this, there's a good process, and there's a key element. If you have very precious assets to protect, if you don't have an EDR, we think this is the first brick you should lay. Very clear. Thank you, Marie. We are reaching the end of our roundtable. Thank you very much for your attention. As a summary, we can remember that this XDR approach is a natural evolution of detection technologies that we've known. They have a very large spectrum, and they have specific capabilities on orchestration, on automation. It's a by design tool that enables analysts to work on security incidents as smoothly as possible. I would like to thank all three of you as experts on the topic. Thank you for your feedback on these technologies. We are reaching the end of this roundtable. I'd like to thank you for your presence. If you have any question, we will take them, but we'll free up the room, so we'll be right outside. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.